Welcome to Whole Team Eats Podcast, a 24/8 media production. Ever wonder who trains your favorite athlete? Join Tim Miller as he takes a look at the behind-the-scenes training of professional and collegiate athletes. Tim connects with trainers, athletes, and others in the sports community to share their stories. This podcast is dedicated to highlighting the work of athletes and trainers to inspire action and build community.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to an all-new episode of Whole Team Eats Podcast. This is episode 11, season 1. I'm your host, Tim Miller, and on this show, I sit down with Delfonte Diamond. Delfonte has always had a passion for football and spent countless hours growing up working on his craft. When the dream of playing in the NFL didn't become reality, Delfonte decided to focus his time and energy into training athletes to help others make the next level. After starting from scratch out of college, Delfonte has trained thousands of athletes, including some of the biggest names in the NFL. This list includes CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys, Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers, and recently retired NFL receiver Emmanuel Sanders. On the show, we discuss some of Delfonte's mentors and how they played an influential role in allowing Delfonte to become the trainer that he is today. Delfonte talks about what it is like to witness the journey of his athletes and how he tries to make sure that they never become complacent in their work ethic. After several years of training, Delfonte is now flying around the country to train high-profile athletes as he is determined to become the top trainer in the industry. It's my pleasure to introduce Delfonte Diamond. Delfonte, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. I'm real glad to be here, man.
So, like most of my other episodes, could you please tell our audience a little bit about your off-season in 2022 and how that's been?
Oh, man, let me tell you something. This off-season was probably my best off-season yet. My clientele from NFL has grew tremendously, and I'm really blessed for it. Had a lot of new big names like Saquon Barkley, Deebo Samuel, and, of course, CeeDee Lamb, and I have about approximately 300 NFL receivers right now, so I was able to begin to travel all over the world in a matter of a month this offseason last month, and I was truly blessed to begin to meet these guys and really take their game to the next level.
You have an incredible, I know we've talked before the show, you have an incredible backstory, and how you've got your training business to where it is today. Is really, hats off to you for the hard work and dedication that you've put into your craft and what you do. It's a big, it's big for you when these players are putting their trust in you to keep them at the top of their game. You've mentioned Saquon Barkley, Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb. These are, Pro Bowl caliber players in the NFL, and they trust you with their off-season program. So, it says a lot about you and your work as well. But before we get into all that, we want to take a step back to kind of the beginning. Could you tell us about, where you grew up, and then what sports you played, and maybe that played a part in now where you are today with training?
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, man. I was born in the country, but I'm originally from Houston, Texas. Went to school to McMurray State University down in Abilene, Texas, about 6 hours from here. And I was really pursuing my degree in business finance and physical therapy. And I came across one of my guys now, long-time relationship by the name of Rashad Whitfield. Everyone knows him as Footwork King. And I came across him around like 2010, 2011, around that year. And he was beginning his training career and stuff like that, and I began to collab with him. And slowly but surely, my clientele began to build up. Just the simple fact that me understanding the game and where I came from to where I am now is truly a blessing. So for me collabing with him, he was actually one of the main reasons why and how I met the NFL guys, because at that time, around 2011, he was really blowing up in that aspect of the football and the footwork training and stuff like that. He was blowing up. So that's when my clientele began to grow as I began to collab with him. And, from then to now, I went from probably having about maybe 20 clients, probably 30, if that, to I have about like 3,000-4,000 clients now. So it's just really, it's truly a blessing, man. Truly a blessing.
It's crazy that your growth trajectory over the last 8 to 10 years has gone from 20, 30 clients to, you're saying 4,000, even probably more than that at this point, of all the athletes you've trained over that period of time. But let's take a step back to your athletic career. So you played football in high school. Can you tell us about your time playing football in high school, what that meant to you, and then you went semi-pro after that?
Oh, high school down here in Texas. First things first, high school in Texas is real big down here, and I went to Nimitz High School down here in Houston, Texas. You know, really wasn't producing as I wanted or like to do in my high school career, but luckily that was an not agent, but a scout from McMurray University by the name of Coach Jay Osborne. That's my man for life, and he's been was recruiting me ever since my junior year in high school. So senior year, I made the decision to go down to Abilene, Texas, and ball out there. And I was blessed to begin to, meet this head coach by the name of Howell Mummy. So before Howell Mummy came to my school, to McMurray University, my junior year had about 25 catches, probably 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That ain't no scout. I mean, that ain't no stats at all. Ain't no team looking at that. So from the massive jump from junior year to senior year after Howell Mummy came from Texas Tech under Mike Leach. Howell Mummy and Mike Leach was the originators that made the air raid offense. And Howell Mummy came to my school and out made a massive explosive year from 25 catches to about 100 plus catches to about 2,000 yards and like 15 touchdowns in McMurray my senior year. And coming from that year, I had a couple of NFL trials, CFL trials, and stuff like that. Luckily, I didn't make it, but nevertheless, I was blessed the opportunity to begin to make it to that level to even, perform in front of them. Most people don't even have a chance to do that, and I was blessed to really do that. But after that, I began. I pursued football, semi-pro. I went to a league down in Minnesota. I was blessed to go play under Howell Mummy again in the spring league as well on TV. So I was bouncing around, man. But nevertheless, once you're bouncing around from team to team and trying to get your shot to the NFL, even the CFL, and nothing's working out, you begin to lose the love for the game. So now, for me having so much in my tank, I just transformed that. I just transformed that energy from me playing football into my training. And for what I've learned over the years and what I've gained knowledge from these, high school and college and even NFL receivers and stuff like that, even the coaches, I've gained so much knowledge and wisdom of the game to begin to not be selfish of it, but to begin to pass it down to the next generation. So my football career was good. I wish I knew now what I knew back then. But nevertheless, everything happened for a reason.
And who would you say? So it seems like that journey obviously had multiple different mentors along that time. But who would be your biggest mentor as you moved into training?
Well, of course, the best mentor anybody can have is God. Because of the simple fact that without Him, none of this would even be possible. But if I had a couple mentors that I sat under for a couple of years, was probably my man, Coach Keith Williams, Coach Dub. He's the assistant receiver coach now at the Baltimore Ravens. He's actually the OG. Like he really was the one that really created the training, and really people, know him for him being that type of guy and really wise. Really, I'm talking about knowledgeable of the game and stuff like that. Him, another one I would probably have a mentor. Probably my man down in Florida, Goldfeet Global. That's my man down there. He really kept me on his wing as well, showing me the ins and outs, giving me some words of wisdom and stuff like that. So those are probably my top three mentors I would say I have.
It's interesting to hear. Like some of you, Goldfeet Global, and then coach of the Ravens. We've obviously heard of Goldfeet Global in our space where we're dealing with a lot of these trainers and different networks of athletes, and it just goes to show that. Somebody like Goldfeet Global can then produce a trainer or help a trainer along like you, and then the success of you and your training business is really it's really astounding to see where you've gone in such a short period of time. So if we could just kind of transition, what would you say like your normal work week looks like with your athletes? How many athletes are you training per week, and what does that schedule look like?
Well, on average, let's just talk about the off season. The off season, like everybody's out of school, college in town, NFL's in town, people that's overseas in town, CFL, NFL. So that's a bunch of athletes, So I have to begin to really work my calendar and stuff like that because when I have this massive, span of athletes that I have now, it's crazy to keep up with everybody else. So on a normal day, like a day off season, I'll probably start around like 8 in the morning and I won't get home till about 7 at night. So I can say between 200 to 300 athletes a day in the off season. So, including NFL. So that's a normal day. That's a normal day. But a max day, like I'm talking about everybody's in town. I'm talking about everybody want to get in. I say about probably 200 to 300 a day. Literally. It's really like that. Yeah, it's really like that down here in Texas. And like Houston have so many high schools down here. It's crazy now. It's crazy. Back then when I was growing up, it was probably just 5 to 10 main high schools down here, in Houston. But now it's probably over 100 now. It's crazy.
Wow. Can you give, for our listeners who aren't super familiar with your training, can you give them some background on like your area of focus? Obviously you work with a lot of wide receivers and tight ends, but like what is your background when it comes to training? And can you talk about your area of focus and how you actually work to make these athletes better?
Okay, for me, personally, there are different type of trainers. There's trainers that do speed, weights, Pilates, whatever the case may be. Me personally, I specifically, focus on receiver specifics. I'm talking about everything about the position I perfect. I'm talking about footwork, releases, hands, stacking, top of the break, catching, the whole 9 yards. And that's what I really, specify in because for me, coming from the perspective of what I've learned over the years, see, I always tell people that anybody can make it to the league. Anybody can get there. That 4.3 can get you there. And you jumping 40 vertical, that stuff can get you there. But the question is, what's going to really keep you there? And that's why I come in because of the simple fact that I don't train receivers. I don't train tight ends. I don't train running backs. I train weapons that once the coach really see who they have, they can begin to put them boys at any position because of the simple fact that I create weapons and they perfected the position to the max. So from everything I've, created and everything I've made from scratch and stuff like that, I really, really just truly are like really blessed because I can truly say that there are like a lot of counterfeits out here. I'm gonna say it like that. But a lot of people know where the real work is at. I'm talking about game time situational work, not just work for likes and comments on social media. I'm talking about the real authentic work. So me, the whole 9 yards, becoming a lethal weapon is really what I perfect.
Without being a trainer myself and just watching from social media and other channels like that, I don't think you would have the clientele that you would if those players didn't trust you with their bodies, right? And their bodies is what makes them money and really what makes them a living. So you have younger players, you have some veteran players as well. You seem to give a good mix. Can you talk about your first client? I believe you said it was Emmanuel Sanders. Was that your first client?
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders, man, that's my dog, man. He from Belleville, Texas. I went to SMU. I met Emmanuel through my brother Footwork King. I was started training him when I was collabing with Rashard Whitfield down here in Houston. And man, I'm talking about humble as can be. I'm talking about hard worker. But one thing I hate about Emmanuel Sanders, because people that don't know and who is from Texas and Houston, down here it gets hot. It gets real hot. And this past summer, it just hit a max peak of the hottest day of the month. Well, the hottest day recorded, and it was about 120 on turf. But one thing about my man Emmanuel Sanders is what I hate, but I love him to death. He loves working out in the heat of the day. I'm talking about 1, 2, 3 o'clock. with the sun top of the sky. I'm like, Emmanuel, man, you can't choose 7 o'clock at night or something like that. But man, that's my man for life, man. Hard worker, down to the earth. I'm talking about one of the top guys I have that's really gonna put the work in, man. Man, that's my man for life.
And what is it that he likes about working out in the heat of the day, so the peak of the day? Is it to prepare himself for game time? Is it like if it's a hot day on game day that it's just mentally preparing him for worst case scenario should he be put through that on a Sunday?
Boy, the perspective behind him working at the height of the day is just that a lot of people fail to realize that during the camps, whatever football camp you're in, NFL, like they go hard all day, every day. Like it's gonna come a time where your body gonna shut down if you're not truly prepared really for it because of the simple fact that a lot of people go into these camps and taking it lightly like it's an easy cakewalk, which is not. Boys get injured, boys catch full body cramps, boys, all type of stuff happens. So for him perfecting that in the heat of the day, his training, his body, his stamina, and then the crazy thing about that, from him working out in the heat of the day, he work out by himself. So it's rep after rep after rep. So he's training his body mentally and physically, to really, respond to those game time situations where it's fourth quarter, everybody else is tired, but his body's already immune to that type of lifestyle down here in Texas. And that's why he really does that, man.
And the off the field work does show on the field for him. It's always translated to the field, and he's been one of the best receivers in the NFL for it seems like the last decade or so. Um, I wanted to transition to another athlete of yours, CeeDee Lamb, a little bit of a younger athlete. Can you tell our listeners about your relationship with CeeDee? I think before the show you were telling me that you've actually been working with CeeDee since 8th grade. So you've seen his progression through high school, college at Oklahoma, and now with the Cowboys. Could you talk about watching that progression and watching him grow as not only a player but as a person?
Oh man, that's probably one of the best things about being a trainer, NFL specialist is watching an individual grow. From what he started to where he's at now. I've been training CD, I think it's going on about 12, 13 years now. Ever since 8th grade. Uh, Another one of he's another one that's really hard working. Like he's really, really one of those individuals that's special, because of the simple fact that, back then when I first met him down here in 8th grade, going to 9th grade year, going to Foster High School, he was really, really, you know, in a position and desire to really perfect his craft. And for me, witnessing from the boy that he was what he was. And then it's crazy that when you really look at the young people nowadays, they are immature, they childish. CD wasn't like that. He was always, hey, coach, can I come work out? Hey, coach, can I come work out? He'll come work out before he go to a club or go out. Like, he prefer working out. And that's what I love about him because of the simple fact that there's always room for improvement. You see what I'm saying? So now me witnessing him growing from a boy, I'm talking about from middle school to high school, all through the 4 years of Oklahoma, and now he's in NFL, predestined to be one of the greatest receivers that ever came out that franchise. It's just nothing changed. The only thing that changed about him is that he want more. He'll never become content with it because of the simple fact that I told him, I said, man, look here, CD, the very second you become content, there was somebody behind you really lurking to take your position. So he's staying after hours, after practice, more catches, talking to Dak Prescott, doing this, watching the film. He's doing the extras. And from that, coming from 8th grade until now, nothing changed. He's a hard worker. So, man, that was a relationship that I love because of the simple fact I watch him grow from a boy to a very, very mature man, very humble.
And I think that it speaks to his discipline, to all the distractions through. Obviously, he was highly touted, heavily recruited out of high school, to making all these plays in college. And it goes without being said, when you play for the Dallas Cowboys, there's always another level of expectations, especially when you wear number 88 for the Dallas Cowboys, right? There's a long history of receivers, great receivers. I believe it was Des Bryant, Michael Irvin, and others for the Dallas Cowboys that have put on that same jersey. And there's just an expectation from the Cowboy greats that you're going to come in, you're going to work hard, you're going to be disciplined, you're going to stay after practice, and you're going to be one of the better receivers in this league, hopefully. So it's interesting to hear somebody's progression with an athlete from such a young age, to watch him from where he was. And you're saying, from a personality standpoint, he didn't change that much. Like, the discipline was always there, the maturity was always there. Like, he was mature beyond his years at that point. So it's really interesting to hear kind of your point of view on what is now one of the league's bright young stars in the NFL. I do have to ask you. So you're working with, you create, players who are very versatile, right? They can be used by their coaches in a variety of ways. I think a good example of that is Deebo Samuel, who you work with, right? He can be worked as a running back, as a wide receiver. He blocks. He does it all, right? And he's always been able to do, he multi-talented in a lot of different respects of the game. But could you talk about, do you as a trainer, and I always ask this, is I find it interesting, do you find like an extra layer of pressure when you're dealing with these high level athletes, or are you just staying true to what you know in your training principles and methods and saying this is how we're going to build you up as an athlete over time? Do you feel that extra layer of pressure dealing with such highly touted athletes?
Well, when you first started off, being young, you like, oh man, I got an NFL guy. What I'm gonna do? Oh man, I don't know what to do. I don't know if he gonna like me. I don't. It's a lot of thoughts going through your head. But for those young trainers out there that's really trying to get into the training business, it's all about time and consistency and trusting your craft. Because the more you do it, the more you get good at it. And I was always one of the ones that became real consistent with it, like having these high caliber, receivers. I'm talking about, Hall of Fame, CeeDee Lamb, Eric Ebron, and Richie James. All these boys like coming to you, and you begin to become overwhelmed at sometimes, because not overwhelmed in a bad way, but I'm talking about overwhelmed. I'm like, man, I'm really doing this. And it'll kick in to you, because of the simple fact that, like you said, these guys trust me. And not only I've built a relationship with these guys on the field, but also off the field. You know, they can call me 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with something going on, and or we can just call, just checking in. It's bigger than ball for me with these boys, and even every one of my boys I train is bigger than ball. But the pressure was never there. Of course, when you first start off, but the more you grow, the more the clientele, builds up, and the parents that come see you, and they trust you with their kid, and the more confidence you begin to have. So even if I have, another one come in like Devontae Adams, it's no pressure because I trust my craft, and I know for a fact that something I have he can use. So I know that I will forever bet on myself because of the simple fact that I know that I can begin to produce. And I always tell people like CeeDee Lamb and Deebo Samuel, they know. Like to this day, I still call them trash. But the reason being is because of the simple fact that I know for a fact that they will never become content because they want more. Like I tell them every game, I don't care if you have a 5 catch, 200 game, 2 touchdowns. I said that I need more. I need more because I'm always raising the stakes. So it's no pressure with me, especially now because I'm just first and foremost, I'm just grateful for God and trusting me to begin to, you know, invest and really, pour into these athletes the best way I know how. So it's really not no pressure with me because, like I said, I will bet on myself every single time.
And as your business grows, right? So we've seen with trainers and obviously the emergence of social media, there's a lot of different trainers and athletes putting content out there. Some of the content, obviously, we want to be mindful of. There could be trainers who aren't working properly or athletes who are working their off time who aren't working on the correct things. But for you, right, as you grow your business, whether it's through social media, word of mouth, what is the biggest driver of getting new athletes for you? Is it word of mouth at this point? Was it social media at the start? Like, what is the mix of how you get new athletes?
Well, think about it when you first starting off, like I said, for those young athletes, of course you're gonna have to really push out, your work. You got to post, you got to do this, you got to do that. But all it takes is that one individual to really repost your stuff or share it. That's all it takes. And that first individual was Emmanuel Sanders. And once he posted, reposted me and stuff like that, my clientele shot up. So now it's just, especially for my name being all over the NFL. Like recently, I'm not getting calls from coaches and stuff from different NFL teams. Really, just telling me, hey, Coach D, I just love what you're doing with these receivers, man. I'm gonna have to talk to the front office to get you down here. So a lot of them coaches from the NFL knows me. So it's all about now is run them off. Most part, of course, it's going to be social media because certain people that can't reach you, they gonna have to see it on social media, like overseas and stuff like that. But now it's just word of mouth, and especially down here in Houston, everybody know me. I'm well known over Houston, so everybody call me old Coach D. So any receiving tight end that really wants some work, they'll probably come across a parent, go see Coach D. So it's just word of mouth right now. So yeah.
So you're located in Houston. At the start of the show, you did mention that you're starting to travel all across the country. Could you talk about what it's been like to start traveling outside of Houston and training, and kind of how does that work? Like, is the front office contacting you or agents contacting you to come work with their clients?
Okay, well, flying, I'm gonna say it's good and bad. The reason being, it's always good to get out of the country and stuff like that, but once you go into 10, 11 teams in like 20 days, you flying all over the place. You get tired of flying. So, but nah, it was really a good experience, man. But more than likely, it's the players. The players are running by that coach. Hey, I got Coach D coming down, whoop de whoop, boom boom, and then that's how they begin to know who I am. Because it's a simple fact that first, okay, if one of my starting receivers is telling me that they flying a trainer down here to my city, I got to know who he is. I got to meet him and stuff like that. So more than likely, man, to be honest with you, the traveling was really a blessing. And I actually been traveling since 2 years ago. And I've been to multiple cities now, multiple teams. It's still blowing my mind to this day because the simple fact that once I come in town, like especially for when I went down to the Giants, David Seals, my one of my brothers, that played for the Giants, number 84. Uh, he flew me down, and he's like, man, I want you to come down. I'm gonna fly you down here. I'm gonna talk to my coach, stuff like that. I'm gonna bring you down. I'm gonna have some guys pull up, man. They're gonna get some work in. All right, cool. I get down there. Just so happens Saquon Barkley pulled up. I said, wow. And I'm talking about to this day, man. If you see Saquon Barkley in person, oh my God, it's like his legs are so big. But no, man, he's a hard worker too, man. I love Saquon to death. But the travel experience, man, it was really really good this year, really good.
What does Saquon kind of trademark Saquads or something like that about his
I don't
his
know what it
ability?
is. I don't know what it is, but man, like when people say, man, Saquon legs are huge, that's exactly what they mean. Exactly what they mean. And then, like, he just coming off an injury and coming back this year. And from my perspective on what I see and how I was training him, he literally gained 10 steps. Like, he's a lot faster, which blows my mind.
And is this the first or second year that you've worked with Saquon?
It's actually the first year I met Saquon. I worked out with him. He worked with me because of the connection with David Seals down there. And then it was him. Then it was the draft pick they picked up, Wendell Robinson. He came from Kentucky, and it was a bunch of boys, man. It was truly a good time down there in New York.
So we've talked about a lot of good stuff to this point. What kind of hurdles or roadblocks or setbacks have you encountered over your training career? I'm sure there must have been some along the way that you had to overcome. Can you talk about some of those setbacks that you've kind of faced along the way? Maybe it was getting started, maybe it was more recent.
Okay, yeah, man. Well, when I first started off, one of the main blocks, just when I was about to take off, my career was really from the take off. Uh, I tore my Achilles, so I really couldn't train. I really couldn't, do what I need, do what I wanted to do because I was injured. I was in a cast, and stuff like that. And, so I had to begin to bounce back from that, because of the simple fact that, because in my mind, not every time, but everyone that comes across with me, in my mind, that's probably a little brother to me. So I have to begin to really press my way because they need me. So that was a roadblock I had to overcome. And man, and this one is probably what everybody goes through. Sometimes when you pour out, pour out, pour out, all you do is pour out and help people, pour out and encourage, and pour out and train and stuff like that. You sometimes go back to the house drained, and sometimes that's really overwhelming to certain people because we don't really know how to begin to overcome it. So now, just a simple fact that me really pressing my way and understanding that there's a lot of people count on me. So I have to begin to really press my way behind that. And then the last thing, once you become drained and overwhelmed, that slowly leaks into depression, because you get down on yourself or, nevertheless, you you train in somebody, you train a specific individual that really trying to get to the NFL and they make it. They not only made it, but they still there 6, 7 years, and then they live in a dream that you wanted to have. That's another obstacle because me was trying to pursue the NFL, do this and do that, and then my connection didn't work out. I guess I was too slow, or whatever the politics said about me is sometimes if you're not really prepared to really accept that, and that's probably the biggest test. That's probably the biggest test. Watching an individual receive a phone call in the training session from an NFL GM saying, I'm about to pick you up. You're about to be the next so and so for the team, for this franchise, knowing for a fact that you tried everything you wanted to do, but it didn't happen the way you wanted to happen. That's a hard pill to swallow. But nevertheless, you got to begin to put your feelings aside, your emotions aside, because at the end of the day, it's all about the athlete. So that's probably one of both probably the most big obstacle I had to begin to overcome.
Yeah, that must be, you know, coming from your background and your desire to make it to that next level. It must be tough to see that, but you kind of have to compartmentalize those feelings and kind of put them aside and just be happy for the athletes that you're training because it's proof on the field that your training is effective, and if you're getting calls from agents for your athletes, obviously it's a great thing for not only the athlete but for you. It says a lot about your training, and obviously the athletes, they trust you and they're continuing to enhance their game in a respect of a lot of different ways. So just to start to wrap up here. Future plans for your business. Where do you plan? So you've trained thousands of athletes at this point, but where do you plan to take it from here? If I don't know the next step in your training progression, I don't even know if you do.
Now, to be honest with you, I don't even know. A lot of people gonna tell you, "Oh, I'm gonna be here next 5." No one knows, what's going to happen, but it's up to us to begin to prepare for it. But what I can see myself in the next couple of years is becoming one of the greatest, of course, NFL specialists that ever did it. And then the next step is probably, being or becoming an NFL receiver coach, you know. But I can see myself opening up, multiple facilities in different, countries. Placing behind, I'm gonna say, the beef between all these trainers, outside. I'm not like that, but everybody else, and really collab with everybody because, man, this world could begin to really be a way better place if we begin to collab with one another and really give back to the next generation. But a lot of people are really concerned about, oh, I train him, I train. That's not what it's about. It's all about the athlete, and that's what it's about. So I really want to see myself. Gathering all the best of the best trainers up all under one roof and really coming up with a plan to really change the world. Really.
That's great to hear that, there's some, you know, camaraderie between trainers, and obviously we know the training business or industry to not always be, together as one, all working together. Obviously, when you're talking about high-profile athletes, sometimes it gets a little uncomfortable with certain trainers and things like that. But just kind of to wrap up here, one last question for you would be, obviously you've learned a lot over your last 10 to 12 years in playing and training. But what advice, if any, would you give to younger self that you wish you knew back then? Or would you say that you had to go through all those different difficult times and learning experiences to get to where you are today?
Well, of course, the, the the best advice I can give my younger self is to mature and remain humble because I really wasn't humble at a young age. And to stay consistent with it because everybody not going to see what you see. Everybody not going to accept what you're trying to do, and that's perfectly fine because of the simple fact that everyone that hears your vision can't handle your vision. So the vision is specifically made for you. And going from every obstacle that I went through, I wouldn't change it because all of us have to go through it because and everyone asks me, hey, Coach D, like, how do you became so successful? And my answer is always the same. My answer is I became attractive to taking the stairs. And what that means is a lot of people are so attracted in taking the elevator. Nice little soft music going up, nice and easy, nice and slow. That's the easy route. But me, I became so attracted to taking the stairs because the stairs will forever teach you something that the elevator can't. Because the stairs, you'll mess around and, slip or you might break your ankle, roll your ankle and stuff like that. And all this stuff is needed to begin to understand that, for us to become successful, it's up to us to begin to accept that process. And I always remind myself, you cannot be a recipient of the promise without being a participant in the process. The process is key. Going through so much hell is key because I'm telling you, everything that you are currently going through or about to go through, that's just really preparing you and equipping you for what God has in store for you. So that's my advice for the younger me right there.
I think the process and learning to embrace the journey is really important for a lot of people. And a lot of people, you're right, they want to take kind of that easy route, but really embracing the journey can do wonders for you as a person or as a trainer or any line of business, really, not just training. So that's great to hear. I just want to thank you again for coming on the show, Whole Team Eats podcast, Delfonte. We're excited to see where your business goes from here. Obviously, all of your athletes, we're watching them on Sundays or Saturdays, the college athletes. But thank you again for coming on our podcast, and we can't wait to see where things go from here.
I appreciate you for having me, man. I appreciate you.